this is me looking back and realizing, and I knew it back then. I was a mental midget, not because I chose to be. We had a lot of emotions at home, and then as far as hockey and stuff goes, there wasn't a lot of guidance. So, anyways, it would be dialing in mentally. Okay, and this is also my life when I was done hockey and not having a clue what to do, where I went into a self improvement, really dug deep within myself to find out who I actually am, and I still don't necessarily know, but I know that I've got some grit, and I know that I dug deep, and I'm a much more stable, better person, intelligent, and like you say all the time, no one would look at me and say that you were ever insecure or you were ever shy, but I was. But the work that I did on myself mentally and believing in myself and just digging myself out of the not the gutter because I didn't wasn't homeless with a shopping cart, but like I mean, just like what the hell is your purpose in life, dude?
Yeah.
Right? Like hockey's done, and you know, so if I could go back, I would really dial in mentally, and this is advice I would give to most people or everybody that if you're going to do something that requires any form of success or requires any form of sacrifice or that's a big challenge, whatever, is that if you're not mentally dialed in, you will not do it
So
or you won't sustain it. Okay.
yeah. So what? Let's be a little more specific about that. What do you mean? What do you mean by dial in mentally? So
Okay.
like, are we talking specific mental tools to deal with adversity? Are we talking about dealing with distractions? Are we talking like what
All of
kind of
it.
stuff? Yeah.
All of it. All of it. It's so like I said before, it's like, okay, number one, knowing what you want, right? I want this more than anything. And then understanding, do I actually? And can I be critical of myself? Can I look in the mirror and say you did it or you didn't?
Mm-hmm.
It's really important. Is it looking in the mirror and saying you were scared yesterday? You were scared. And that's just being honest with
So yeah,
yourself,
some
right?
honesty in there
Some
too.
honesty in there. It's like are you pretending? All those little things like
Mhm.
emotionally and just being honest with yourself. And that's number one. And then from the actual mental side of it, it's like we talk about it all the time, but I don't really know if people really do this as a whole. Is number one is I really, really, really wish I understood controlling what I could control. Okay. And everyone's got their own issues. Like, let's say people's home lives. Maybe you come from a rich family and you're a spoiled brat and you just get everything you want. And then you go to the hockey world and you don't. And you expect that. And then if you don't understand, well, if I was at home, if I had this is what you're not in the moment, man. You're not in the moment. And if you have your issues at home where you've got a poor family life and you're not sure what you're going to eat that day and stuff, it's like, okay, you can't control that necessarily. What you can control is what you're doing. So that understanding, owning your moment, and controlling what you can control, to me, through experience and dealing with people, and it just really does make sense. Once you do that, living in the moment and controlling what you can control, and like just getting rid of those distractions, to me, life makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
To me, pressure's gone. So you're not worrying about, right? Like, let's go through just my head. Okay. Am I big enough? Say 5'9.5", 5'10". I'm big enough. Am I big enough? Like, oh man, these guys are big. These guys are big, and dealing with that situation every day. Well, who cares? Who cares? But as you think about, is your size going to be sufficient? Scouts see, like, man, I look a little bit shorter than a lot of the guys. Like, I look on the smaller end. Are they going to worry about that? Like, that's out of my control. All I can do is take my 5'9.5" frame and play hard. That's all you can do. That's what I can control. The other thing I control with that is I can control how strong that body is. Right? I can work out and I can do all the things that and mobility and all that stuff to make that not 5'9.5" body the best it can be. That's it. It's the big game. It's not a big game, man. It's not a big game. It's just a game. It's the same thing. So what can you control? You can control your shifts. You can't control anything else. You can't control the coach. If I truly, truly, truly understand that, there would be zero pressure. The scouts, the press, all this stuff, there's no pressure.
Yeah. Do you think this is maybe a little bit of a side tangent, but do you think it's actually possible for kids to understand this? This is my thing because so just two sides. So one, to me, I'll just give my thought and then you go. To me, I don't think it's that kids, because there's an element of it that's a maturity thing where it's like as you get older, you start to have some more perspective and you realize that the world doesn't revolve around you. It's not all about you. And some of those things start to set in a little bit deeper as you start to get older. But when you're in those like 14 to 20-year-old years, when you start to become an adult and you think you got everything figured out and you don't, and all that, is it possible to understand this? And I think part of it is that a huge part of it is that it isn't taught to the kids. Like no one explains these things. I don't remember anyone ever in hockey that I ever was connected with besides my parents talking to me about this kind of stuff ever.
And you were lucky if you had your
And I
parents
was
to do
lucky.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, because here
You're
you are
very
saying you
fortunate.
didn't have that, right? So
how do you? But it's, to your point is how many people can actually give you advice when they don't have that tool themselves?
exactly.
Right.
And so
If you plant corn, you get corn.
yeah, yeah. Well, because
It's true.
but that's my question. So it's like a part of it is definitely that kids are kids and they're immature and they need time to process. But I think a lot of it is really just the kids aren't taught. They're not told the information, so they don't have a chance.
Right. It's learn as you go, and it's fine. But like for a kid, for kids that don't have a lot of support or whatever, I mean, you put these words on a piece of paper or stamp it on your forehead or say it 500 times a day, or everything you do is what can I control? When things are good, what can I control? What am I doing now? I'm bored, whatever. What's my, like, what is my goal? Or it doesn't even have to be that, right? Like shit happens in life and it throws you for it's a sledgehammer across the head and you go, what the hell? I didn't see that coming. And then what happens is you stew on it and you sit there and you think about it and the problem becomes a bigger problem. And everybody, I think not everybody, but I think most people go there and go, son of a bitch, why did that have to happen? And you have a little shit your pants party, right? But the key is to get out of your shit your pants party. And it's to say, what can I do about it? Or what can I do right now? Because the problem only gets bigger in your head. So if kid can learn, and listen, when you tell a kid, I know it's just words, but you see, people say it just so flippantly all the time. The motivational little words or whatever, that's flippant. But if you take the time to sit down and talk to a kid and explain it to them, they actually will start to get it. Now, that's not to say a 14, 16, or 18-year-old kid, when the coach is an asshole to him, they're getting benched, telling him that, you can only control what you can control. So what can you control? And it's that 3 shifts a game. That doesn't make them necessarily happy, but you're giving them the basic tools to deal with the problem. And if they hear it over and over and over again, it will at some point. It doesn't mean it happens at the first week. It'll at some point they're going to say, yeah, all I can do is actually control what I can control. So that's the one thing. So if I was a kid, if I was me back in the day, and if I heard those words and wrote it down and asked every time I did something, or when things went good or bad, or when I was thinking about something in the future or thinking something in the past, I'd say, what can I control about this? Like, what can I do right now about this? And it's like, do something to get yourself out. And if you hear that, control what you can control over and over and over, then that becomes almost your first question. I've gotten better at it in the last 5 years because I've actually really focused on it. And it's eliminated a lot of issues because it's like problems aren't necessarily problems. Not saying that there's no problems, but dealing with it or taking ownership immediately in what you can control changes a lot of things.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I just had an example that, with kids being able to actually grasp some of this stuff. Like I had a kid yesterday that was here to work out. He's 13, and last summer. So just think, this is the brain of a kid, right? It's so interesting to me. So last summer we had a conversation right here when we're in our shoot the shit corner, and we were talking about when kids are walking around with a backpack all the time. Right. So we were talking about when it's Friday night, you're at a hockey game and there's a pack of kids walking around and they all got backpacks. And it was like a half joking, half serious thing where we're just kind of like, what do you have in your backpack? Like, why do you need a backpack right now? Like, what's in there? You know? And so we have like a couple kids in here that are around that age where that would be something, you know, the 13, 14, 15, 16, where their parents let them go to the mall on Friday nights now, or they go to the movies, or they go to a hockey game or whatever. And we were just, our point was basically, not that this is always true, we're not saying it's always true, but there's just like something sketchy about a group of kids all with backpacks. So it's kind of like our half joking, half serious conversation, right? So just yesterday, that was last summer, okay? So just yesterday, this one kid that was in that conversation, he said, Eric, I was at wherever he was the other day, and he's like, and I get what you mean about the backpacks, right?
Yeah.
He's like, I saw this group of guys walking around that were a little bit older than me, and it was just like, I was a little nervous, like around the guys. Like they're walking around on a Friday night, whatever. It's like, what do they do? And he's like, and they're all like vaping and stuff, and they all have backpacks.
Gotta put things there.
Yeah, right. And so it was just funny that the kid, this was last year that I talked about this. I forgot about the conversation. And I mean, it is kind of a bit of a running joke we have with the backpack thing, but it wasn't something that we constantly are talking about. And this is what I'm saying with the kids, man. Is like, you don't know what, if you actually take the time, like you said, to have a conversation, you're actually talk to them and serious. You're not just throwing the meaningless motivational sayings at them. It's like you're actually having a serious conversation where you're trying to connect with the kid. Like that was a conversation I had last summer, and this kid just brought it up yesterday. So that means that stuck with that kid since last summer because he brought it up to me, you know?
Dude,
So-
you know, it's very, very, very impactful when you show. So for parents and coaches, it's like very, very, very impactful when you take time and talk to a kid. You do a great job with our kids in here, because it sticks, man. Some of it sticks.